Good morning or good afternoon or evening, whatever time zone you're coming in from. It's morning here in
Uh,
Canada.
I'm in London with most of the team, so early
Oh,
afternoon, let's call it.
oh, you're Freeburg as well.
Yes.
Okay, Ingrid and Maria. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, maybe wait a few minutes until what I was going to suggest is just in the chat, just put in where you're from and so I get to know who you are and where you're calling in from and what your interest is. You have some burning questions about Canada. Have you ever been here? Where traveling to when I was 26, I traveled to some communist countries and met somebody my own age, and it made me really value my Canadian passport and the freedom it gave me. We're one of the most sought after countries to come to. But you'll hear me explain about how what a great country it is and how Toronto. So this is my favorite view, and this is actually from my apartment where I live because we Toronto's on a big lake, and I got really really lucky and got this incredible view that I wake up to every morning. I moved in for a year 15 years ago when I returned to Canada or returned to Toronto after what I call my 30-year detour. So yeah. Anyways, do people usually are they usually a bit late, Rachel, or just
Yeah, people kind of just come and go as they
okay.
wish.
I did a PDF of this, so I don't know if you've got a place to post it later. I can
Yeah,
email it to you.
that would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll post it.
So I just did just so you know, so Patti Pokorchak's my hometown. I was explaining to Rachel before as I call it my 30-year detours. I left I'm really good at planning. I left for a year and returned 30 years later. And like I say, I've been here 15 years again. It's always been my hometown. I visited every year, at least once a year, no matter where I lived. But I lived in Europe for most of the 80s and traveled everywhere. Then came back to Ottawa, which is a boring government town, but very pretty, big tulip festival. Nothing to compare with the Netherlands, but still. So, hello. Hmm, Hello. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so introduce yourself in the chat. Tell me what your main interest is, any questions, or you can just go briefly in the chat. Okay. Got it. Okay. Travel to the Rockies. Yes. Um, Hello, here we go. And I just thought I'd just give you a broad overview, so you can see Canada is the second biggest country in the world. And if you look down on the lower right there, you see Toronto is just this little blip. But the province of Ontario has like almost 40% of the whole population of Canada. It is the economic engine. It's the Ah, I don't know if you'll agree, Rachel, but I call it the little apple, right? Because we have our own version of Times Square, which is Yonge and Dundas Square, which they're renaming because of political reasons. But it's like right downtown, and it's the big billboards and activities, and it's part of the world's longest street. But we've cracked the 40 million population, which is huge. But we're just a fraction of the world's population, and everybody, pretty much 90% of Canadians live on the U.S. border. And I've been to every province. I haven't been to the territories, which is the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Inuvit, which is the indigenous population now, which has very little. And again, I just did a quick Google it. So to go across Canada takes almost or over 8.5 hours. And from Toronto to London, England is an hour less. So it's a huge, huge, huge country, tons of coastline. We have the Atlantic and the Pacific. We have like 20% of the world's fresh water, 2 million lakes. I think we have 100,000 lakes just in Ontario, which is for Europeans, it's really hard to comprehend how big it is. Six time zones. Newfoundland is unique in that they're a half hour difference. So when I was a farmer, we used to celebrate Newfie New Year's, which was 10:30 because we'd be in bed by 11 because we were farmers. So again, biggest producer of maple syrup, what we're known for. We're one of the most multicultural countries in the world, and Toronto is now, I think, more than 50% of the population was born somewhere else. So it's a huge melting pot of little neighborhoods. They say that Toronto is a city of neighborhoods. There's like 1,500 neighborhoods. I don't know the physical size. Like we do have highways that kind of are, along the lake and up both east and west side, and then across the top of the city there's actually two highways. I don't know the actual distance, probably about 40 kilometers, 50 miles or so. But within that, there's 1,500 neighborhoods. So whatever your authenticity, whatever you're looking for, there's a community for that. For Brits though, there's pubs on every corner. Like there, we have Firkin pubs here as a whole chain. One of my favorite is Plaza Latina, which is a little bit outside of the downtown, and you go in there and usually we're the only gringos there. Like everything's in Spanish. It's every country in Latin America has got like a food stall there, and it's all in Spanish. And they have a Spanish grocery store, a Spanish travel agent. It's just like just in a different world. Same thing, Chinatown. It's so diverse. During the sort of the summer months, from summer for us is probably late April, May to October. We have a bunch of festivals. TIFF is probably the most well known for the film festival. The one thing I have to really stress, again, Toronto is probably one of the safest big cities in the world. Canadians were known for being nice. I'll say sorry about that because, we're known to be sorry about everything. We say sorry first, but we have maybe one murder a week in Toronto, which with a population of 3 to 4 million. And there's Toronto, then there's the Greater Toronto area, which is about 10 cities. And then there's the Greater Toronto Hamilton area, which encompasses, 100 kilometers or more, which is about to population about 14 million. So it's quite a dense, small thing, but it's just an extremely safe environment to be in. You don't have to worry. There's very few no-go zones, that people know about. So I've just got a few of the highlights, and I think what everybody knows is the CN Tower. It's kind of the symbol of Toronto. You've got the different observation decks. My sister gifted me for a milestone birthday at the EdgeWalk, which I only had like a day to prep myself for it because you're way up there. It was a very cloudy day, and I just want to say I know fear. I was when they said step forward, it's like I couldn't move. I just could not move. But if you're a thrill seeker, and if as long as I was looking backwards up at the tower, I was fine. But it's a I teach. I've been a serial entrepreneur for over 30 years, and I now teach entrepreneurship, business, sales, and everything. And I always, tell my students, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your comfort zone, face your fears, and do it anyway. So. I faced my fears and I did it. And it's too bad it wasn't a better day. But it's fairly expensive, but you can get the rotating restaurant is quite a. I don't know. It rotates. I think once an hour, and it's quite a thing to behold. You get a great view, on a really sunny day, and typically we have a lot of sunny days. One of the most eclectic neighborhoods we have is called Kensington Market. So I'm sort of concentrating on sort of the central area. Very eclectic. They have a pedestrian Sunday where there's no cars. It's bohemian. It's just a different vibe. You won't see any chain stores or anything. It's all independents. Go there for vintage clothing, great food. It's street art. There's a car that's been decorated as a flower garden. But it's just a great place to hang out, and it's very close to Chinatown as well. Another great place to hang out when you're hungry or if you got an Airbnb where you can cook, is the Kensington Market, which again, historical, huge, fresh food, direct from many, many farmers. There's all sorts of events. Every place sort of has events. What's been a great area just to the east of the St. Lawrence Center or market is the Distillery District, which is the old uh, Gottram and Worts. I think they were gin or whiskey. So it's all sort of Victorian buildings that have been just renovated into and restored into art galleries and boutiques and cafes and restaurants. And it's a great Instagram place to go. It's where the one picture I have, we have our own version of a Christmas festival, Christmas market, which gets super, super popular in December, where they charge, I think, $5 admission because it's so popular. But during the week, it's free. We have apparently one of the world's biggest entertainment districts. Apparently, we have a concentration. This is a photo of our city hall, which is another iconic place. There's a big skating rink or arena in front of it. Again, Instagram, Toronto sign, and just to the west of that is the entertainment section with restaurants and nightclubs and you name it, theaters like galore. Like that's sort of where it's really, really concentrated. I'm not sure you really want to stay there because, bars are open till about 2 a.m. Certain circumstances, they might be open till 4. So can be pretty rowdy and noisy there. But yeah, there's lots to do at night. There's always, in the summer months, every weekend, there's probably 4 to 5 different festivals of some sort. Filipino or Caribbean or Latin America or there's always something going on. One thing, and here again on the right, you see a picture of the skyline from the Toronto Islands. So there's this ferry, as you can see, the ferry that crosses over. And people actually live on those islands, and there's also the island airport as well. But it's just, if you just want to, I mean, downtown there's parks interspersed with the condos and all the office buildings, but the office buildings are now being repurposed into condos or living, apartments because of the hybrid work arrangements. But the Toronto Islands is just a really peaceful place. You can rent kayaks and kayak around or canoes, paddle boats. There's walking trails. There's even a little zoo, and it's really sort of a retro blast from the past. If you want to get away and just escape, and going to where the people live is really quite quaint. Um,
Let's pause for a second. Ingrid, are you having a hard time seeing the slides?
Yeah, for some reason they just stopped. They started out and now they're gone. I don't know what the difference is.
Maybe Patty, do you want to try unsharing and resharing your
sure.
screen?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Let's try this again. Okay. There we go. Okay. Share. Okay. Okay. We're at Casa Loma. Can you see that, Ingrid? Yeah. Perfect.
There it is. Thank you.
Technology. So a little bit just north of the city center is we have our own castle. Again, it's like one of those castles that was built for, I don't know, some wife and she died. It's tragic. I actually went to prom there once. We have our own castle. Nothing like Windsor Castle or Buck Palace, but we have our castle and it's sort of elevated so you get a good view. The gardens are gorgeous. Again, seasonal events, we're big on, like they say, Canada has 2 seasons. One is, winter and construction. In the summer, there's a lot of construction, but we pack in festivals and events, and there's just a lot to do. Not quite London standards, perhaps, but compared to Ottawa, a lot more to do. There's comic clubs, there's theaters, it's just, and there's places that have an awful lot of seasonal events, and it's the Castle Loma is quite special. So a little bit northwest, where you'd probably have to rent a car to go to the Toronto Zoo, but it is one of the largest zoos in the world, and it's by so they arrange it by region. It's all very they're looking at the sustainability and welfare of the animals, and I think it rates very highly there. Very interactive. It's a pretty much you can spend most of a half day to a full day there. It's a lot of walking. But again, I just thought I'd mention it if you're coming with families or just interested in the zoo. Sports. This is not my specialty. I have been to two baseball games, one hockey game, zero basketball, because I hear they're really, really loud and they're pretty darn expensive. But I mean, baseball is probably the most affordable. It's in that Sky Dome, with a retractable dome thing that we're, I guess, known for. We call it the Sky Dome, but it's Rogers Center. Things, as they say, money talks. So things get renamed all the time because of who's sponsoring, whatever. But it's iconic to go to a baseball game and eat a hot dog, and the beer is so expensive. It makes you cry. $20, which even American is like $12, $13 for a beer, a can of beer. Like it's just out. It breaks my heart. But anyways, the tickets are a lot cheaper. I think Raptors and the hockey, like basketball and hockey are quite expensive. But if that's what you're into, yeah, there's games. What be more affordable is I know for hockey there's the team that's one below the professionals, the Marlies, and they'd be much more affordable. But again, it's all concentrated downtown. Centrally, you can go to any of those. And because of the way they play right now, I think hockey's off, but we got baseball and basketball now. So there's always something. We got soccer as well. I forgot to put soccer. Right now, for 2.5 weeks, we have the Canadian National Exhibition, which is, as a kid, it's a huge sort of full-time exhibition grounds right on the lake. And that, as a kid, that was the highlight. You loved it and hated it. You loved it because the X was so much fun, with so much to do, with rides and candy and games to play. But you also knew as soon as it finished, it was Labor Day as our our September long weekend, and the next day you went back to school. So it was a love-hate kind of thing. So that is the last 2 weeks of August. I'd be remiss not to mention a day trip. Everybody kind of knows, if you come to Toronto and you haven't been, you have to go to Niagara Falls. It's probably an hour and a half or 2 hours if you take public transit. I've been told that the Canadian side of the falls is prettier than the American. You can get really close to the top of the falls, like I mean within like 10 feet or so. The power of the falls is like there's a guy, you can do tours behind the falls. You can do the Maid of the Mist, which is the ferry boat. Have you ever seen Princess Di? She was in Niagara Falls. There's actually two Niagara Falls. One is the city of Niagara Falls, which is centered around the falls, obviously. Very tacky. It's very much a beach town, like in England, right? On the southern coast, you've got those like Margate, or those, I forget what they call, but it's tacky, but fun. It's a lot of fun. And then just north of there, about, I don't know, 10-15 minute drive, is Niagara on the Lake, which has gone very classy and very sort of upscale. Right now they're having a peach festival because they're in the peach growing area. They have very strict codes of how, what color you can paint your house and stuff like that. But definitely Niagara Falls is always it's always a great experience. It's two casinos. There's a lot to do, but it's just innocent fun, basically. So so there's downtown, there's a ton of other museums. The Aga Khan is just a little bit on the northeast side of the city. Um, and it's all for Islamic art. Again, a beautiful, architecturally beautiful building. If you're into shoes and other things, Bata Shoe Museum, Hockey Hall of Fame, the Royal Ontario Museum is huge on world cultures and history of Canada. We have a gay village as well downtown. Oh, there's the AgriCam. I guess forgot to do that. And that's it. Okay, so that's my formal part. So let's open it up for questions. What interested you? I'll stop the share now. So anything of interest? Any questions?
Sounds like an amazing city. I've been to, can you hear me okay?
Yep, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've been to other Canadian cities and I just loved it. I didn't realize it was so close to the falls. It's been many decades since I've been to the Niagara Falls. Um, do they have any like farmers markets?
Oh God, there's a farmer's market every day,
Okay, perfect.
every day. And all different parts of
Right.
the Toronto area. Yeah, they're big. They're very big. They're well posted. There's and then as we get, Canada's still pretty much a farming community. So we have there's every community has their fall fair. And they kind of
Oh,
start in July and they go till October. And we also have the international plowing match every year, which is huge. So just so you know, I used to be a farmer, right? For 8 years, I
oh,
lived on a
okay.
farm. Um, I started a hobby farm and garden center, and I was in a rural community, and you really get into the different fairs and the international plowing matches like 1,000 acres. It's huge, 500 hectares basically, and it's just a huge, people come for the whole week and plow. It's big and
Interesting.
it's, it is interesting, especially as a city slicker, right? It's just you have to experience it. But the fall fairs in like smaller communities, it's just they have apple baking pie baking contests and the different flowers. It's really quite quaint, within the province, you'll have like there's probably about five of them. One thing we're known for is butter tarts, which is a sickly sweet kind of sometimes with raisins or nuts. It's like a sugar syrup baked tart, a little pie, and we got the yeah, the butter tart trail, so you can go to like 10 different places and get super sick on butter
Right.
tarts. And there's now we've got craft beer everywhere. Believe it or not, Canada or Ontario's finally getting out of the dark ages. As of September 5th, apparently you're going to be able to buy beer and wine in corner stores. Like it's the first
Wow.
ever. I know. Yeah, so there's been pros and cons about that. But when I first came back 35 years, when I came back from Europe, and I used to have to go to the bank. So there was one plaza, bank to get money, cash money. Then I went to the beer store to buy beer. I went to the liquor store to buy wine, and then I did my groceries. So four places. And to actually just go to one store and buy beer and wine and groceries and pay with a card, we're pretty much cashless now. We have tap, which I
Mhm.
don't know if you have that. Have you got that in? I think in Germany they don't quite have that yet. I know in the States,
Yeah, the
I don't.
Germans like the cash.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're all cardless, pretty much cardless, or it's on your phone basically. You
Yeah.
got the Apple Wallet, so. But yeah, it's a beautiful city. It's very safe. You hear about the traffic, and it's like compared to London. Not even close.
Yes.
Not even close. So I commuted, when I went to university, I commuted basically from where I lived down to, our little Times Square, mini Times Square. So that's where I went to uni and where I work now. And the traffic's the same as it was 50 years ago. Like there's only so many cars you can put on it. It takes maybe 10 minutes longer. Or public transit can still suck,
Really.
uh, yeah, yeah.
I like to use public transit wherever I go in the cities or walk.
Yeah. So
So
we have right now we only have two subways, east, west, north, south. The north south has a loop, so it goes more yeah. The streetcars are slow. It's sad. They
yeah.
just, North America's car centric, right? But they're trying to they're implementing more bike lanes, dedicated bike lanes, protected bike lanes. There's more bike sharing. So there's places, about 300 places you can rent a bike for, half an hour a day. They're trying to make, so they're building a new, what they call a relief line that's going to go sort of diagonally through the city, which is long overdue.
Okay.
But yeah, it's,
What's the best time to come visit, like shoulder where it's not too touristy, but still
so
fun?
we had July was probably one of the hottest humid times, which was
Yeah.
horrible. I had
Yeah.
a friend visiting and it was just horrible. So yeah, June's probably good. I say September, October, the
Okay.
fall colors, which is usually end of September, early. So we have an early Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgiving's the second Monday of October.
Okay.
So the US is the last Thursday
Last
of November, I
Thursday.
think. Yeah. So we're much earlier. And that's where the fall fairs are. The colors are just incredible,
Perfect.
honestly. It's and the weather's great. There's no bugs. There's very fewer tourists,
Yeah.
It's a great time to visit.
Okay.
Labor Day, which is the first Monday in September, that's back to school, back to work, and the tourists kind of disappear basically. So
Okay.
yeah.
Good to know. Thank you for all that information.
Yeah, and you can contact me anytime you've got any questions. Like I say, I've been across the country flying. I've never driven. I've never taken the train. The train is supposed to be quite the experience. It's just a big country. It takes you 3 days of 8-hour driving just to get out of my province. Okay.
Wow.
Just to,
Wow.
it's like, you drive for an hour between cities, and there's not much in between. It's a big, big country.
Mm,
So, but
okay.
it is, like I say, it's very safe. Yeah. Any other questions from anybody else? Where else have you been? Have you been to Canada before or thinking about it? Yeah.
Me? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I lived in New Hampshire for many decades. So I went
Ah,
up to Montreal, Quebec City, rather enjoyed it very much, especially when in the summer heat, like August heat, going up there, it was so much better. And I just recently had a tour in July, actually, through the Canadian Rockies, like
oh,
Banff and Jasper, before it burned.
Vancouver. Yeah.
And
We
then
got lucky
Vancouver.
there.
Calgary
Yeah.
was beautiful. We just hit it right to see the Stampede.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. So it was I've never been to the Rockies up there, but I've been to Vancouver before, but it was
Oh,
very
yeah.
I loved it. It was beautiful.
I,
So
I once spent 2 weeks in British Columbia, starting in Vancouver, and we did the inland journey up to Prince Rupert. So there's Barkerville, which is a restored gold mining camp.
mhm.
Um, it was quite fascinating, but it's just, and then we did the inside passage back to Vancouver Island, and
Oh wow.
it's I was there with my friends who are from Britain, and we were just saying we're gobsmacked. It is so incredibly
Yep.
beautiful. You just
Yes.
like you just
Yeah, I was in awe. It's like beautiful.
majestic. It really is majestic, and that's the interior of BC is so they call it the 100-mile town or something, and it's 100 miles to another civilization, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a huge province. Huge province, but yeah, it's beautiful. We're really, really fortunate. Like I say, I'm a first generation Canadian, German, Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So I know what it's like to be a immigrant and illegal immigrant, which we won't go into, but yeah, between Germany and England, yeah, don't have, yeah. Anyways, but yeah,
So
to be in different countries and to see. I mean, I've been to Africa and Haiti and communist
yeah,
countries, and it's like there's nothing quite like Toronto. It really
yeah.
is.
I've been to
The
many
food.
places. I'm also an immigrant from Germany,
Oh,
actually,
okay, okay,
many
yeah,
years ago, but a legal one.
yeah, yeah.
And I
I
travel
was
all
made
over the
illegal. I was
world.
made
I
illegal.
just love it.
Yeah, work permit issues, but it got straightened out. And then I got laid off. It's the tech world. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was interesting. Any other
Okay.
questions about Canada or Toronto or?
I have a question. I know we touched on food briefly earlier.
Oh,
I wanted. I think that I really like to visit for the food and to try and understand a little bit more about the local culture. Is there any dish in particular you would recommend if we were to visit
oh,
one?
well, Canadian, I mean, I remember years ago when somebody says, what's a traditional dish? And we had nothing. We have corn on the cob, we have maple syrup, we have peameal bacon, which is kind of like the bacon you get in England. But now our foodie culture is multicultural. So you can go for Thai and Vietnam and Filipino and Ethiopian, Mexican, you name it, fusion. It's we have more pizza places than you can shake a stick at, more burritos. It's Ukrainian. I'm just going down, pizza, lots of Indian, vegetarian Indian, lots of Indian places. You name it. You can do a foodie tour. So I forgot to mention, but most places you go to, you just kind of go on. I forget what the site's called. There's Guru Guide or something, or go to Meetup, and you can get walking tours, guided walking tours of the different areas, and you can have foodie tours, right? And you sort of pick your cuisine and go for that. Like I say, we have so many different neighborhoods. So if you particularly in, like we have Little India, which is sort of the East End. We've got that Plaza Latina, which is, like a Latin American plaza. And in between is just everything, just you go to like a food court and you have your choice of about 10 different cultures. There's
Mhm.
Chinese and Japanese, and so we got sushi on every corner. And weed is legal here, so there's a weed store on, cannabis on every corner, and vape stores. Oh God. So
I'm
yeah, so
guessing it's very similar to like London in that regard. Then it's just whatever you
oh
fancy, you can find a good restaurant for. Fair
yeah,
enough. Fair enough.
you go to, whatever neighborhood you're in, you go to Yelp and just go, what's there? And we have just so many, from high end to low end to food courts to like the university where I teach, there's I don't know, like a truck stop. We have food trucks. We have food trucks at the X right now, the Canadian National Exhibition. We don't have as good poutine as they do in Quebec, in Ottawa, I must admit. The food truck, and yeah, that was my
Gonna
go-to.
ask. Yeah, I was gonna ask if it is like
Does
popular.
everybody know what poutine is? Because it sounds to me, it took me ages to find. It's French fries, chips, smothered in gravy with cheese curds, which are fresh cheese, which got to be squeaky kind of, and it kind of melts, and it sounds disgusting, and it is so delicious. So it's just yeah, once you eat it, you just can't. Another one of our things is beaver tails, which are not really beavers. They're actually just fried dough with, cinnamon sugar or whipped cream and strawberries or something. So it's not a real beaver. We do have a fair bit of wildlife, even in the city. You'll see skunks and raccoons and foxes and coyotes and deer, even in this part of the city. I live sort of central, I live a southwest corner of Toronto. But being on the lake, yeah, you get otters and mink, and yeah, even a city. It's a lot of, I think there's like 1,500 parks or a couple thousand parks. So everywhere you go, there's, they try to make a park somewhere and some green space. They're really trying to encourage that. But yeah, it's a foodie paradise. You can't go wrong. You can
That's
eat
good
a
to
lot.
know. That's
Yeah,
very good to
yeah.
know.
We have some Michelin star restaurants, I guess, if you want to go high end. You don't have to. There's just so many places. Oh, one part I forgot to mention too is like the where I grew up was Bloor West Village, was kind of waspish, trendy is she, but north of it's the Junction, which for Canada, it was I think until 10 years ago, it was dry, so there was no alcohol served. Now they have alcohol, and it's just again another eclectic little neighborhood that you can just go and wander, and a million different restaurants and bars, and yeah, so we're getting, as the city expands, the gentrified places. So we do have an issue with homelessness. When you're downtown, you see people, especially in the winter, sleeping on the grates, which is, something I think many, many countries struggle with. And it's even that's why when you go to Vancouver, which has a much milder climate, it's apparently even, and Victoria, it can be really bad because our winters. I mean, Ottawa, my last winter there, we had 15 feet of snow. Okay, 15, 1 5. Okay, that's a lot of snow. Here we might get 1 or 2 feet in the winter. And some winters you barely need boots, So it's milder. We got the lake effect. Winters are okay. We have an underground city. You can walk about 2 or 3 kilometers underground. There's shops and restaurants under all the office buildings, and it's connected to the subway system. Um, because of the winters, like in Calgary, you've got a huge enclosed area. But we can have really, really sunny days in February, but Canadians tend to be snowbirds. If you're retired, you tend to go away for 1 to 6 months of the year, if you can, or just a week, or 2 weeks in the, February's the March break is when the elementary kids, school kids are off. So that's a huge time to go to Disney World, okay, or somewhere that's warmer than here, just for a break. Any other questions or um anything to add? Yeah. Any other great experiences you've had in Canada to want to share?
I came to Toronto a couple of years ago because my son lives there.
Okay.
And so it was really cool to come and visit him and see your city. I loved it. We
Oh,
went down to
wonderful.
Niagara for the weekend. I was just there for 10 days, but it was wonderful. Yeah, we really had fun.
Yeah. Did you get to Niagara on the Lake too?
We did. We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What
the
did you see?
wineries on the way back. And we
Oh,
discovered ice wine. Okay, I didn't know ice
yes.
wine before.
Oh, that's one of our
I'm
big
from the,
exports. That's one of, yeah,
it's a
it's one of
big
our,
thing. Yeah.
yes.
I'm from the UK, but I live in South Africa. And we can't make ice wine here. It's not cod live. We make a lot of wine, but not ice wine.
Yeah, we're well known, and the Germans particularly love the ice wine because it's when the first freezing of the grapes or something, and it's picked at like 3 in the morning or something. It's very special. Uh, yeah. Again, other thing we're famous for, which is bit of a niche market, but yeah, maple syrup, ice wine.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's it's good to hear. The one thing I
So
would
I'll come
say,
back one day. I'd love to. I'd love to
yeah.
come back one day. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's a long flight from South
A long
Africa.
journey. It's a long one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
I know. But I would suggest Toronto can be an overwhelming city if it's good to get like some kind. There's we have the hop on, hop off kind of double-decker buses, but to find a guy just to get an introduction or to get to know somebody. We have a ton of meetup groups. Um, there's a meetup for just about every kind of niche that you might be interested in. It's good to know somebody because it is a big city and you don't even probably
Mm.
know where to start. But I think it's warming up compared to where it was like 30, 40 years ago. But yeah. Yeah. Peter, what's your interest in Canada?
Hi, Patty. Yeah, I've never been to Canada, and I've traveled quite a bit actually, but I've never been to Canada, so it's very much one of the undiscovered gems in my portfolio of travels. But if I was to, yeah, I mean, if I was to look at, let's say, 10 days in Canada and wanted to take in Toronto, uh,
Yeah.
how many days do you think you'd need to do justice to Toronto if you're not spending all the 10 days there? And I suppose the other question would be, if I had 10 days and some of them were in Toronto, where would be if there were three other spots you would definitely recommend within reasonable reach of Toronto that you get a good sense of Canada and Canadian culture and Canadian people?
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter, because again, I can't emphasize how big a country it is. So I just had
Yeah.
my nephew from Germany come to visit, and because we're family, so he spent a week in Toronto, but then he went for 2 weeks to BC. But it's like a 5 hour plane trip to Vancouver.
Mm.
So closer is like a 6 hour train trip to Montreal. Montreal is, and again, when you go to Quebec City, you think you're in a francophone world. Now, their French is not Quebec, is not Parisian French, right? It's very nasal, it's very different. But Montreal is more Anglophone. You know, they wanted to separate like 25 years ago. They wanted to separate, but they've calmed down, realize how important it is to be a bilingual country. But I would say that would be, you probably want about 5 days in Toronto, I think. You know, figure out, do your research, figure out what you're interested in. You don't really need to rent a car. Ubers and taxis are everywhere. The transit downtown being central. So as long as you're on the subway line, you can get everywhere fairly quickly. But I would say, yeah, Quebec City, like Montreal, Quebec City, because even it's 2,000 kilometers to the East Coast, right? It's like a 2, 3, 4 day drive. It's
Mm.
huge. It's just, I mean, if you're into seafood, oh my God, that's where the lobster. There's Shediac is the lobster capital. I love lobster. I start drooling. Halifax is, you know, the Maritimes is in a world of itself. And that's probably it's only a 2 hour flight, you know. But I hear Cape Breton, which is still on my bucket list. I've been to Halifax and I've been to Prince Edward Island, which is idyllic. It's you know, I don't know what the population of Prince Edward Island, but it's probably one of the neighborhoods in London, right? It's just like it's, I know, 400,000 people, like it's tiny. But Halifax, they're known for their hospitality, their warmness, their seafood, and it's picturesque, you know. And in Cape Breton is just wild Atlantic. Has anybody heard about Come From Away, the story of, you know, when 60 planes landed on 9/11 in Gander, Newfoundland, 6,000 people. I mean, the town only has 700, but 6,000 people landed like overnight, and the town gathered around to feed them and house them for a week or so during 9/11. So they've got a play about it, and it's just this typical down east hospitality. Like, yeah, you need food. It's quite amazing. But yeah, I mean, if you're willing to fly a couple of hours, then Halifax is quite doable. Train to Montreal is very, you know, it's like 5 or 6 hours, you know, and it goes
Okay.
along the St. Lawrence, and that would give you, I think, a really good. You'd have to really just concentrate on Eastern Canada, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And in
Yeah.
terms of budgeting, I know it's obviously there's a different dollar, a different exchange rate there, but would it be considered an expensive city, say by American standards? I'd have some experience of American cities.
Yeah, I would say so, a little bit. Yeah, yeah, especially, you know, oh, drinking is out in restaurants is outrageous now. If you're lucky, you can get a small glass of wine for $8. So the exchange rate's about 1 to 1.35, or one and a, I just do 1.5. Like for pounds sterling is about 1.5. One
Mm.
pound is $1.50 Canadian. So but I was at a restaurant yesterday. It was $22 for like a 9 ounce glass of wine. $22, which is, you can buy a bottle for. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I spent time with my sister in Germany, where for, you know, 2, 3 euros you've got a decent bottle of wine, and here it's at least, you know, 10 to 15 Canadian. To I had a friend just visiting, and she spent $32 for 2 bottles, you know, and
Mm.
it's
I
it's
have to
great.
say, I'm in
Yeah.
Dublin actually, and there's nothing shocking in that. That's kind of the prices here too for
Oh, is
wine.
it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
for
Well, it
wine.
just, I mean, again, you sort of pick and choose where you're going. And I wasn't, I mean, my favorite restaurant is right on the lake. It's, you know, patio. It's the summer. But it was expensive. It was for 2 people, no drinks, just water, salad with goat cheese, and I had mussels, $70 with a tip. So,
Mm.
which is, you know, I mean, I've paid $32, yeah, for yeah. So it really varies. You can, you know, if you do the
Yeah.
food court, the food trucks, you can get away with a lot less. So,
And
Air,
accommodation, do you know what it's like in terms of like hotels and things like that? Would it be presumably
yeah.
cheaper than New York anyway?
Don't come when Taylor Swift's here. It's 1,000 a night
Okay.
apparently.
Yeah.
That's November. Airbnb would be your best bet, but you're still looking at about 100 and something dollars. Nothing, you know, unless you're willing to share a room or something. You can do the couch surfing, but yeah, hotels can be pretty pricey. After the pandemic, we were locked down the most in the world. I think we were really, and prices just seem to have really gone a little crazy compared to before. But food, food's gotten more expensive, but I know people eat. The average price of a car is 66,000. So my car is 22. So a lot of people are running around in $100,000 cars. So it's a rich country,
Mm.
I mean, there is that divide, the have and have nots, but again, if you don't come in the main, July and August, you come in the shoulder season, then you're going to get some bargains, I think, in accommodation, like Airbnb. Yeah, for sure.
Now, it always strikes me that, when they do this kind of most livable cities in the world, which is everything from the cost of living to the quality of services to education and everything, the whole kind of basket of goods and services and what it's like to live in a place. Canada has always got a few cities in the top 10. It's either Calgary or Vancouver or Toronto. They always, yeah, I think
Yeah.
Canada is the highest performing country. So there's obviously
Mhm.
a lot going on there in terms of a place to just have a good lifestyle, a good quality of life.
It is. There's so many, like I say, I lived in England for about 3.5 years and I made good money, but I spent it all, like literally spent it all, just in living. So, but here, yeah, now I'm old enough, I get my pension and I teach part-time and I get money left over at the end of the month. So it's like, it's okay, we funny people have my age, at least, in my friends, we go out for lunch. We don't do dinners anymore because it's just, I don't know, we don't want to drive at night. We don't,
Mm.
it's just a hassle to get around, and it's just less traffic. It's just easier to meet, and it's nice. I don't know, it's I think it's still part of that cocooning thing. So but I'm sure, there's a thriving nightlife. There's nightclubs galore. There's more music and independent music. I mean, we've got Taylor Swift coming, obviously, at millions of dollars for a ticket. But there's indie
Mm.
bands at 20, 30 different locations every night. So I go to the Cameron House where you can just go to the banh mi place, the Vietnamese subs that you can get for like $5, and then you bring it there, and their beer is pretty cheap, and it's a funky place, and they always have three groups every night. Yeah, you just have to know somebody, just say, hey, I'm interested in this, and then I'll hook you with my brother because he's an indie music fan. So yeah, it's a great country to live in. I'm, like I say, I'm really really fortunate to be Canadian and live here. And then yeah, I know. I, I just really lucked out where I live. It's a rental apartment, because we have rent control for certain and everything that was before 2018. So I pay 1,500 a month for a large two-bedroom, like right on with the multi-million-dollar view. So yeah, I'm not moving.
That's great. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about Maria? What about you? What was your interest in Canada, or have you been here? Or you're just logged on, but not really there, I guess. Just like my students, sorry, when we had Zoom classes. Yeah. Yeah, when we got the lockdown, it was like overnight we went Zoom online for, yeah, it was
Mhm.
interesting, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Any other questions? Or you've got my contact information on Freebird, and I'm happy to answer anytime or make connections, meet you when you come over. I live really close to the Pearson, the main airport. So yeah,
Super.
I've done lots of tours around Toronto. When you've got relatives around the world, you do a lot of tours, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I know how you feel. I live in Tucson, Arizona now, and
Okay.
so versus New Hampshire, where I used to live.
Okay.
So I'm
Oh,
exploring all the west part now
uh,
of Canada, and it's just been beautiful. And I may take you up on, give me some hints because
yes.
very, I'm very enthusiastic about coming to visit, especially in the fall.
Oh,
It may not
yeah.
be It's not this year or next year, but maybe the year after because my travel card is pretty full. So
Cool. So how was the summer in Tucson? Because I was in
it's
Phoenix
hot.
and it's hot, super
It's
hot.
not as bad as Phoenix. Phoenix is
Oh,
just awful. We have a green desert down here, which is absolutely beautiful, especially
okay.
when everything is in bloom. It's
Oh,
very pretty. And you know, you just stay in the shade. You go hiking very early in the morning, and then I mean, it's to me, it's much better than shoveling snow. You can't shovel the sunshine. So
yeah, we had a really mild winter where I park outside and maybe once or twice I had to like clear snow, but it wasn't bad or anything. But I just got back from 2 weeks in India and Nepal and it was like
oh yeah.
25 degrees. Yeah. That was hot. That was hot, but
I think the humidity is worse that for
yeah,
me anyway than
yeah.
the temperature. So when you get used to it, and people are happy, they have the sunshine, and you know
Yeah.
life is
Oh yeah.
easy.
The sun's shining, and we're pretty lucky in Toronto. I would not come in November, December, except for the Christmas market. January can be gloomy. I mean, November to me is the 1 month I'd like to get away. But yeah, February, March can be pretty gloomy at times. The good news is when the sun shines, it's lovely. But the bad news when the sun shines, it's cold. It's usually
Oh
really
yeah,
cold.
yeah, good
So,
to know.
especially in Ottawa, which is a drier cold, but it's just a lot of snow, just too
Okay,
much snow.
stay
Yeah.
away from there.
Yeah, a
Have,
tulip festival. I mean, the tulip festival is gorgeous, but I also went to Keukenhof, the famous tulip gardens in the Netherlands.
Oh,
Yeah, we went there on the last day, and that's phenomenal. Really, really, yeah. If you're into flowers, that's the place to go. So,
well, thank you.
yeah.
and it might be a stupid question, not knowing how close you are to the mountain area, but if you wanted to go skiing, how far are you from decent skiing there? Probably 3 days travel.
No, no, actually, Ontario is horrible. We have a blue mountain, but it's a hill. Okay, it's a hill,
Okay.
right? It's about 2 hours away in Collingwood. Again, if you go to 5 hours, 6 hours to Montreal, and you go 2 hours north, is some real hills
Okay.
and real cold. I once got frostbite on my nose. Okay. It's not like Europe. If you want to ski, you go to the Rockies.
Yeah.
So you go near Banff, Jasper there. Of course, Whistler, but it's expensive now, right? Probably what more, I haven't checked it out, but the Eastern Townships, which is southeast of Montreal, about a couple of hours, is probably a bit more reasonable, I would think. You can get into like the Vermont with Stowe, where what is it called? The Trap family opened up their ski lodge, right? The Sound of Music people. But I'm sure with American dollars it would be expensive there. I've heard it's like $400 or $500 for a daily pass. In certain like Utah, it can get really pricey. But yeah, just around Montreal would be your best bet. So you don't have to fly, just take a train or drive, I guess. But yeah, to Toronto, or yeah, here. I learned to ski on a garbage dump, believe it or not, but
Got to start
converting.
somewhere.
Yeah, I know. And then I skied in Europe, and once you ski in Europe, you just like, yeah, when it's so warm and everything, and we're Montreal can be super cold. Like they have wicked, wicked winters, but yeah, we're known, but despite whatever you heard, I have yet to meet a lumberjack. Okay, so we don't have lumberjacks everywhere. We don't live in igloos. We don't. We are quite civilized. I mean, the Germans used to always say, "You're a lumberjack," and I'm from a big city. I've never met a lumberjack. But if you want to see lumberjacks, you go 2 hours north of Ottawa. So Ottawa is about 5 hour train or drive. You go 2 hours north to Maniwaki, and you go there on a Saturday night when the lumberjacks get paid, and it's an Canadian experience you will never forget. That's all I will say. It's a small town, and oh my God. Yeah, you got like this 12-year-old in the bar who's the guest speaker, who's the singer, right? And you're not supposed to be 12 and singing in a bar on a Friday. But yeah, everything goes in that bar and in that town on a Saturday night. But very uniquely Canadian. But the only place you'll see lumberjacks. I guess. I don't know if that's, I'm sure there's lumberjack contests at certain of those fairs and stuff, you know. We do have some rural rustic traditions, I guess, you know, sawing, but probably more out west where they do a lot more logging than they do here. So yeah, but yeah, it's a great country. It's a fun city. I don't think you can ever get bored. You just sit and people watch, and it's always yeah. 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 Hope you all come.
I'll definitely make it over there anyway before too long, I
Yeah,
hope.
at some point.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
It's on your to-do frontiers. It is
Absolutely.
I
It's
mean,
sorely missing. It's sorely missing from my passports.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's you know, you've got the urban city, which is, you know, big city, and then you can just go somewhere and it's so different, you know, and you can just drive. And I know my German relatives, you just drive and there's nothing. There's nobody in front of you. There's nobody. I mean, you drive, say, 2 or 3, 4 hours north, and then you're in the woods. So Algonquin Park is huge, where you can rent a canoe and tent and portage your way around. If rustic is really your well, not, I've camped twice in my life, so that's enough. Okay. But you can do that, you know. It's pretty, you know, there's lots of provincial parks, you know, if you want to, you know, rough it and tent it. And there's lots of motels still around, you know. I don't know if you've heard of Schitt's Creek. It's a famous Canadian series, right? Where they took a rundown motel. And sadly, motels are, you know, on their way out. But it was when I did a road trip around the States a few years ago, and it's a great way to, you know, especially during the recession, it was a great way to have cheap accommodation. But I don't think it's that cheap anymore. But yeah. Right. Well, thanks. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank you.
wonderful. Great. It'll be
Okay.
available on the Freebird Club website for those of you who want to rewatch it and who weren't able to attend. But thank you so much for taking the time. This is great.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. Thank you. And like I say, if you're coming to Toronto, then let me know. Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks so
Patty.
much. Cheers,
Thank
Thank
Pat.
you,
you.
Patty.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
So nice to meet you all.
You
Okay.
too.
Bye-bye.
Take
Bye.
care.
Have a
All the
good day.
best.
You too. Thank you. Okay.